Wyoming Territory, late autumn, 1884 day. Wind hissed through the high pines, carrying the cold bite of snow yet to fall. The forest floor was damp with rot and shadow, the kind of place where sound traveled in strange ways. Colt Merrick rode slow, hat brim low against the pale light. His Mustang, Dusty, picked its way over fallen branches, steam curling from its nostrils. Colt's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, swept the undergrowth for any sign of the missing cattle from the Barrel spread. Then he heard it, a cry, thin, sharp, and human. Not the low wail of wind, not the yip of a fox. This was the kind of sound that hooked into a man's chest and didn't let go. Colt pulled the Winchester from its scabbard, turned Dusty toward the sound, and pressed forward into the darker heart of the forest. The discovery. The cry came again, fainter now. Colt urged Dusty through a tangle of spruce and alder until he broke into a small clearing where the light fell in long, pale shafts. There, in the wet grass, a young woman knelt over a man's body. She clutched a boy, maybe 3 years old, so tightly his small fists were pressed into her coat. The man lying on the ground was stone still, skin already gray, his shirt front dark with dried blood. The woman's head snapped up at Colt's approach, her hair a tangle of chestnut and leaves, framed eyes so full of terror they looked ready to shatter. She shifted the boy to one arm and pulled a small knife from her belt with the other. "Colt, easy, ma'am. I ain't looking for trouble. Elena, stay back." Colt reined in. "You're a long way from anywhere," he said, scanning the trees as much as her. "Elena, we don't need your help." The boy buried his face in her neck. Colt's gaze went to the dead man. His boots were city-made, scuffed from recent travel. The man's right hand was clenched, the knuckles scraped raw. "Colt, he yours?" Her grip on the knife tightened. "Elena, my husband." The word sounded like something she'd been holding in her throat for days. Colt said nothing for a beat, only let his horse shift sideways, eyes always scanning the tree line. There was no movement, no wind, and that stillness was worse than noise. First threat. From the far side of the clearing came a low, rolling growl. Colt's hand went to his rifle before the shape even stepped out from the shadows. A wolf, big, ribs showing beneath a ragged coat, padded into the open. Then another, and another. A pack. Colt eased his rifle up. "Colt, you got more trouble than me, ma'am." The lead wolf's ears flattened. It began to circle, eyes fixed on the boy. Colt fired into the dirt in front of it. The crack split the quiet, sending a few of the wolves skittering back. But hunger was stronger than fear. One lunged. Colt's rifle barked, the wolf tumbling in a snarl and a spray of dirt. Another came in from the side, and Colt barely had time to swing the stock around, smashing it in the jaw. Pain lanced up his arm as teeth grazed his forearm. He shoved the barrel forward, fired, and the animal dropped at his boots. The rest of the pack hesitated, then melted back into the trees. Colt stood there breathing hard, blood running warm down his sleeve. "Elena, you're hurt." "Colt." A scratch. He tore a strip from his kerchief and tied it tight above the wound. She watched him with the same guarded look as before, but this time there was something else. A flicker of reluctant respect, reluctant agreement. Colt crouched near the dead man. His pockets were empty, too empty. Someone had already gone through them. "Colt, how long you been out here?" "Elena, since the river crossing. 3 days, maybe 4. Her voice was hoarse, every word a strain. "Elena, we had a wagon. Bandits came out of the timber. They killed David. I grabbed Samuel and ran. Haven't stopped." Colt's gaze shifted to the boy. Samuel stared back at him with wide, glassy eyes, too quiet for his age. "Colt, you keep on like this, you won't see another sunrise. Forest's no place for a woman and child without shelter." She shook her head. "Elena, you don't know what you're getting into." Colt. Maybe not, but I know leaving you here's worse. For a long moment, the forest said nothing. Then she exhaled and lowered the knife. Elena. Fine. But understand, there are things you won't like knowing. Colt didn't press her. Some truths had to wait until the trail made room for them. He helped her onto Dusty, the boy in her lap, and took the lead on foot, guiding the horse toward the deeper woods where the trees would cover their tracks. The light was dying fast, turning the world to shades of blue and black. A single gunshot cracked in the distance. Colt froze. Colt. Bandits. He motioned for silence, eyes scanning the darkened pines. Colt. Stay close, and keep that boy quiet. They moved into the shadows, the forest swallowing them whole. Section 2, Shadows and Allies. Flight through the wilderness. EXT, Wyoming Forest, Nightfall. Colt moved quickly, keeping to the hollows where moonlight barely touched the ground. Every step took them farther from the main trail, and hopefully from the men hunting them. The air had shifted. The wind smelled of snow. The rain came first, cold needles against their faces. It plastered Elena's hair to her cheeks, soaked her skirts, until they clung heavy. The boy whimpered against her shoulder. A tree groaned above them. Colt glanced up just in time to shove Elena aside as a heavy branch, cracked by wind, slammed into the mud where she'd been standing. Colt, watch your footing. She didn't answer, just nodded, breathing hard. The ground turned to sucking mud, and each step took double the effort. When she slipped the third time, nearly losing her grip on Samuel, Colt took the boy without a word and carried him against his chest. They climbed a slope slick with wet leaves, Colt's boots finding the hidden holds by instinct. Elena followed, her breath ragged but determined. A crash of branches echoed far behind. Colt froze. Bandits, or the wolves again. Either way, too close. Colt, we keep moving. Don't look back. They pushed on into the black tangle of spruce until even the sound of rain seemed to vanish. Campfire truths. EXT rocky overhang later. They found shelter where a jagged outcrop of rock jutted over the hillside. Colt started a small fire, just enough to warm fingers, not enough to throw light into the trees. Elena sat with the boy curled in her lap. Samuel was already asleep, his cheek against her arm. Colt poured her a cup of hot water from his canteen, the steam curling between them. Colt, that man, David, he your kin or your husband? Elena, my husband. She didn't look up, just stared into the little flame. Elena, he was a schoolteacher back east. Thought he could start a new life out here. Land, fresh air, honest work. He didn't know the land was already claimed by the wrong kind of men. Colt poked at the fire, waiting. Elena, they stopped us on the trail, asked for a satchel David was carrying. When he wouldn't give it up, they shot him. I ran. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Colt noticed then. A leather satchel tucked beneath her skirts, the strap wound twice around her waist. Colt, what's in it? Elena, I don't know. Her eyes flicked up to his, challenging. Elena, but they think it's worth killing for. That's all I need to know. The fire hissed as a drop of rain fell through a crack in the stone above. Neither spoke again for a long while. Ambush in the trees. Forest trail. Dawn. They moved early, mist curling low to the ground. Colt carried the boy again, his rifle slung but ready. The crack of a twig made him turn. A figure stepped from behind a pine, then another. Bandits. 3 of them. Rifles leveled. Bandit leader. Ain't no use runnin'. Cowboy. Hand over the lady, the kid, and what she's carryin'. Colt's answer was the bark of his Winchester. The lead man dropped, clutching his shoulder, but the others closed in fast. One grabbed Elena, yanking her back. Samuel screamed. Colt swung the rifle like a club, knocking the man away, but the second bandits barrel pressed cold to his ribs. Then came a sound that didn't belong, the whistle of something slicing air. An arrow struck the bandit in the throat. He fell without a sound. Another arrow thudded into the tree beside the last man's head. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, broad-shouldered, hair bound in a braid, face marked with dark paint. An uneasy alliance. The newcomer's eyes swept the scene, taking in Colt, Elena, and the child without hurry. Raven Elk, you travel loud, easy to find. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Colt kept his rifle half raised. Colt, and you are Raven Elk. Raven Elk, these woods are mine. Those men, not the last hunting you. He glanced at the satchel, just for a moment, then back to Colt. Raven Elk, the pass to the north is clear of snow for now. I'll take you through. Colt narrowed his eyes. Colt, and why would you help? Raven Elk didn't answer. He simply turned and started walking, expecting them to follow. Elena looked between the two men, sensing something unspoken. Elena, he knows more than he's telling. Colt, yeah. Question is it gonna save us or get us killed? They followed anyway, disappearing into the pines, unaware that far behind them, the surviving bandits were already regrouping and closing the distance. The last stand. The mountain crossing, 300 words. Northern Mountain Pass Day. Snow whipped sideways across the narrow trail, stinging their faces. The wind howled between jagged peaks like the cry of some ancient spirit. Colt led the way, leaning into the gale, his coat snapping behind him. Elena followed close, clutching Samuel tight against her chest until his head lolled from exhaustion. When the boy's shivers grew too violent, Colt stopped. Colt, give him here. Elena hesitated, then handed Samuel over. Colt tucked the boy inside his own coat, the heat of his body shielding the child from the worst of the cold. Elena, if he gets sick out here. Colt, he won't. They pushed on. Ice cracked underfoot, the drop to one side falling into white nothingness. Somewhere in the silence between gusts, Elena spoke, her voice small against the wind. Elena, I keep thinking, whatever's in that satchel, it's cost more lives than it's worth. Colt glanced back. Colt, then why keep it? Elena, because David died for it. If I throw it away now, he dies for nothing. The final reveal. Sheltered ledge later. They huddled against a rock wall, taking what little cover the mountain offered. Colt built a small fire, the smoke pulled flat by the wind. Elena stared at the satchel in her lap. Her fingers trembled as she worked the buckle loose. Inside, a leather pouch, a folded sheaf of papers, and a wanted poster. Colt took it, scanning the bold letters. James Harper, murder, land fraud, theft, reward, $5,000. Colt, that's your bandit leader. The documents were deeds and claims, proof of stolen land, names of settlers driven off, all signed with Harper's forged mark. Colt set them down slowly. Colt, this ain't just worth money. It's enough to see him hang. Elena looked into the fire. Elena, then maybe that's why David didn't hand it over. A sound drifted up the pass, distant but growing, the metallic jingle of spurs. Colt's eyes lifted to Raven Elk, who had been silent in the shadows. Raven Elk, they are coming. The showdown, 400 words. Narrow pass, dusk. The trail narrowed to a cut in the rock, barely wide enough for two horses. Snow swirled, reducing the world to shades of gray. Colt stood at the front, Winchester in hand. Raven Elk took position higher on the slope, bow ready. Elena knelt behind a boulder, Samuel hidden in the folds of her coat. The first shapes appeared through the snow, Harper and 5 men, rifles raised. Harper, you've cost me time and blood. Cowboy, now you hand over the woman and what she carries, or we take him off your corpse. Colt answered with a shot. One bandit fell, screaming. The rest surged forward. Gunfire cracked, echoing off stone. Colt dropped another man before a shot tore his hat from his head. He ducked, rolled, fired again. Above, Raven Elk's arrows found their marks, swift and silent. But Harper pressed on, driving his men like cattle into the choke point. A glint of steel. Harper loosed an arrow of his own, aimed for Colt's back. Raven Elk saw it and moved without thought, stepping into the path. The arrow struck deep in his chest. Colt heard the choked breath, saw the warrior stagger, and fury roared through him. He charged Harper. The two men slammed together, rifles clattering to the ground. Harper drew a knife. Colt caught his wrist, twisted, and drove his fist into the man's jaw. They grappled in the snow, boots slipping. Harper's blade slashed Colt's coat, grazing his ribs. Colt drove his knee into Harper's gut, tore the knife free, and in one brutal motion, buried it in the man's side. Harper gasped once, eyes wide, and crumpled into the snow. Bittersweet farewell. Mountain Pass night. Snow fell thick now, softening the world. Raven Elk lay propped against a rock, his breath slow, each one a visible cloud. Colt knelt beside him. Colt, don't try to talk. Raven Elk's gaze went past him, to Elena and the boy. Raven Elk, protect them. The trail is long. His hand, rough and strong, gripped Colt's arm, then fell still. Elena knelt, closing the warrior's eyes. No words, just the wind and the snow. She turned to Colt. Elena, the reward, the deeds. I could sell them all and live rich, but that's not what David died for. She tore the bounty in half, kept only the land deeds. Elena, enough to start over. That's all I'll take. They buried Raven Elk beneath a cairn of stones, the snow covering it like a white shroud. Mountain trail, dawn. Colt rode with Elena behind him. Samuel tucked between them. The peaks fell away into rolling hills ahead. Colt, sometimes you don't choose who you save, and sometimes they save you. The horizon opened wide, and they rode into it, 3 figures against the rising sun. Colt, out here, that's all a man can ask for.